So no mai haere mai. I'll move the recommendation if I can get a seconder.
Happy to second, Chair Collins.
Councillor Collins. Sorry, was that Matua Kake?
If so, I'm happy to withdraw.
Okay, so Maya, can you have Matua Kake and Councillor Collins, please, with this particular item? If Matua Kake can move and Councillor Collins second, please. And then I'll just invite our staff to go through the PowerPoint. Kia ora.
Kia ora tātou, Mr Chairman and members. Mace Ward, General Manager of Parks, Sport and Recreation. So it is going to be a joint presentation today. I'll do a brief introduction, members, and then Mark, Dave and Nick will just outline some of those outcomes across both of the strategies. So the purpose today is just to give some presentations about bringing to life what the action plans have laid out and what we've achieved over the period of time. So can we just move slides, please, Maya? So the priority areas are outlined in each of the strategic action plans. And it recognises really the importance of parks and open space and also delivering sport and recreation in terms of having healthy, active communities. Both plans, as you see, have 4 priority and focus areas and to be delivered through a number of initiatives. 18 actions in the Sport and Recreation Strategic Action Plan and 48 actions across the Open Space Parks and Open Space Strategic Action Plan. So significant pieces of work and a significant focus on that. I would just recognise the importance, and in the previous item, you talked about the policy development of our colleagues and across the organisation in delivering on these actions from a policy perspective, but also our other colleagues and CCOs, other departments of the council, and Tupuna Maunga Authority, for example, so quite significant. Let me just go to the next slide, please, Maya. So implementing both plans, as I've said, is a collective effort and a partnership with mana whenua, the sports sector and many community organisations. As we've talked about often before, without our community and those community sporting organisations, for example, we deliver quite a small segment. So it's that partnerships with our community that's so critical in delivering these outcomes across Tāmaki Makaurau. Council departments responsible range, as I've said, from the Community and Social Policy team, Community Facilities, Ngā Matarai, and our Regional Service Planning and Investment and Partnerships team as well. Community Facilities and Park Sport and Recreation manage what is a significant and complex portfolio with planning and delivery functions spread across both departments. But we collectively integrate and develop and care for key services and assets on behalf of Aucklanders, including parks and open spaces, community places, leisure centres, playgrounds, cemeteries, and sports facilities. Probably significantly in Action A2 in the Parks and Open Spaces Strategic Action Plan is the co-governance of the Tupuna Maunga and parks with mana whenua identified through treaty settlement process, but also picking up on Member Kake's comments, there are also other opportunities to engage with mana whenua, iwi and kaitiaki as well. Let's go to the next slide, please, Maya. So really, members, just a reflection on what is delivered across this significant range of community assets for our community. Over 4,000 parks across the rohe, including 28 regional parks, those 236 dedicated sports parks, and the 800 sports fields that we know are critical for sport and recreation. The visitation to those areas and the utilisation or enjoyment is significant in terms of 2 million visitors to our gyms and fitness programs, 7 million to leisure centres, and 7 million to regional parks and Auckland Botanic Gardens. Quite a focus has been to get beyond the walls of our leisure centres, and our sport and recreation activation program has had 900 activations in recent times over the last year, with over 30,000 people participating. And that's been really critical through a period of COVID when people can't always be indoors, but we do and enable those assets of being outdoors and often engage with a different part of our community who aren't always wanting to go to a gym or wanting to go into an indoor space, and feel much more comfortable participating in those spaces. Those programs also include the sort of Connect with Nature programs, the Wild Child programs, of getting often young people who can connect into nature and learn those types of skills of being, should I say, a wild child, as some of us may have been when we were young and able to roam freely. A significant part of our partnership is partnering with the community through delivering these programs, but also how we deliver parks and open spaces. 170,000 hours of volunteer effort every year has gone from our community, dedicated into how we deliver our services and how we care for and treasure our parks and open spaces. In terms of sport and recreation, it rather dwarfs that statistic, but over 21 million hours goes into sport and recreation from clubs and parents. So a significant effort in that area too that we're not recognising. Of course, I've just mentioned we've mentioned memorialisation and how we care for people once they pass. Our cemetery spaces provide that important role, but also provide a real heritage asset and a place for people to be reflective as well in our region. Significant effort in our ecological space and how we contribute to the restoration of ecological spaces across parks, sport and recreation, and enable us to take a leadership role through the Mayor's Million Trees program on our parks and open spaces. Having people stay and engage, over 23,000, almost 24,000 bookings where people are staying and connecting with nature, having family time on our parks, and that's certainly a very valued part of our service that's delivered. Learn to swim, so critical in a coastal environment that we have. A very difficult period over this last summer with the number of people who have lost their lives, and the understanding that we really need to continue to focus on getting those water skills for life for young people and everyone who lives in our region. So those Learn to Swim programs are really critical in terms of how we build that resilience and capability across Auckland and our young people in particular. If we can go to the next slide, please, Maya, and I'm now going to ask that Nick, Dave and Mark contribute here, perhaps starting with Dave initially, please.
Kia ora, thanks, Mace, and kia ora koutou. So my name's Dave Stewart, I'm the Head of Active Recreation. So Mace has outlined a number of statistics that sort of give a bit of the scale of the mahi that we do through these two strategic action plans. And what we thought we would do is try and bring them to life a little bit through some case studies. So within the attachment to the agenda report, we've got a case study for each of the priority areas in the Auckland Sport and Recreation Strategic Action Plan and the focus areas in the Parks and Open Space Strategic Action Plans. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the four that we have here for the Auckland Sport and Recreation Strategic Action Plan. So the first priority area there is around participation. So here we're talking about Matatoa, which is a kaupapa Māori organisation that aims to reconnect whānau with the environment and traditional customary practices. They deliver a program for kura students in Te Reo Māori 5 days a week, focused on waka, water safety, rākau and cycling. The program is supported by the Manarewa Local Board and delivered at Te Matariki Clendon Community Centre, the Manarewa Leisure Centre and Manarewa Pools. In 2021, over 10 schools were involved with more than 9,000 tamariki and rangatahi taking part. So the second priority area there is around the My Leisure portal for our pools and leisure network. So this was launched in April 2021 with over 15,000 customers already having created accounts online. Over 600 customers over that time have also signed up for their membership directly via the portal. So people can use the portal to view group fitness class timetables and book their classes, manage their membership details, and book learn to swim lessons and track their progress, all saving customers and staff time. As restrictions have eased during the last lockdown, the My Leisure portal was really integral in managing the outdoor group fitness classes that we opened up as they were outdoor and allowable under the COVID protection framework, allowing customers to be able to book and pay online and allowing staff to manage group class sizes safely in line with the mandated limits. Also coming soon in this infrastructure area, as you know, we've got the Sport and Recreation Facility Investment Fund that is currently live, and we've had, I think, 103 expressions of interest in the round so far, seeking more than $70 million worth of investment. So we're coming back to you later this year with recommendations around that. But infrastructure is a really key role that we play in the delivery of this action plan. So in terms of the third priority area there, excellence in sport and recreation, it's a really exciting time at the moment. Over the next 18 months, Auckland will host an unprecedented 3 Women's World Cups across cricket, rugby and football. And Park Sport and Recreation are supporting the delivery and planning of these major sporting events. They build pride in our sporting culture and provide future opportunities and benefits for the community. They will help sort of as a legacy outcome by enhancing local infrastructure, and participation will grow, seeing improved inclusivity for women and girls in the sport. Facilities are often designed for a male-centric sport environment back in the 1960s and 70s, and so they'll become more gender neutral and fit for purpose for the delivery of tournaments in 2022 and beyond. We're working closely with Auckland Unlimited, Sport New Zealand and regional and national bodies and sports clubs to upgrade the fields and floodlighting to meet tournament requirements and to fund the upgrade of changing facilities with a real focus on gender neutral design. And the final in these 4 priority areas is around sector development. So this financial year, you may remember that we approved and we've signed off a 3-year funding agreement with the John Walker Find Your Field of Dreams Foundation. So that committed $180,000 of funding each year over that 3-year period. So this agreement recognises the huge value that this program provides our local communities and the ongoing successful partnership that Council has had with this foundation. The agreement provides operational support funding that enables FIFOD to concentrate on delivering their sport and recreation programs to tamariki and rangatahi who need us the most. So that's the 4 priority areas within the Auckland Sport and Recreation Strategic Action Plan. So I'll pass over to Nick and Mark around the Parks and Open Space plan.
Tēnā koe, Dave. Tēnei hoki te mihi atu ki a koutou mā o kou rangatira I ara hia I a mātou mā I roto I te manaakitanga o tō tātou whenua. Me a rātou mā hoki I hāpaingia ngā whakaaro ngā wawata o tō tātou hāpori I wainganui a mātou o tāmaki makaurau. Nei rā te mihi. My name is Nick Turoa. I'm the kaiwhakahaere Te Wakatairanga Whenua. Te Wakatairanga Whenua is a business unit inside of Park Sports and Recreation that is 2 kaupapa, the first being around supporting the operational delivery of co-governance work on behalf of a number of co-governance arrangements. These include treaty settlement, legislated arrangements with the likes of Ngāti Whātua Rākei Reserves Board, Te Puari or Kaipātiki, and of course the Tupuna Maunga Authority, of which one of these examples are here today. It's probably really important to start off by saying that these are, and the other kaupapa that we look after is Māori outcomes, and it's just to provide a strategic overview over Park Sports and Rec of all of the Māori outcomes that are delivered through Park Sports and Recreation. With this example here today, the Mangafoe Boardwalk, firstly just want to start off by acknowledging that it is an independent statutory board born out of out of a treaty settlement, and Auckland Council's role in supporting the Tupuna Maunga Authority through its delivery is through agreeing alongside the Tupuna Maunga Authority on its annual operational plan. This particular project is around the boardwalk on Mangafoe. It was completed in 2020. I guess for those that have been up there in previous years, you would have noticed that it was really rutted out, and you'd saw really large divots throughout, and that was eating into some of the archaeological fabric on the Maunga. And of course, this is an internationally recognised archaeological site, so it really did, I guess, irk mana whenua that their, one of their wahitapu, their spiritual ancestral places, wasn't being treated appropriately. And this project took quite some consideration in its design to achieve the ability for our communities to enjoy quiet reflection and to enjoy the tupuna maunga, but also to just align with some of those cultural values. It's built in a way, it has a number of sustainability measures, sustainability factors that were built into its design. For example, the main substructure is built out of metal, which has a 100-year lifespan. The whole thing can be recycled at the end of that 100-year lifespan. It's using sustainable forestry products. Unfortunately, not from New Zealand, they are from overseas, but it is sustainably sourced hardwoods. And one of the greatest things about it is that it's on screw pile technology, and so there's no concrete footing on the on this, and the whole thing can actually be taken away at any stage, and it would be left in a state that it wasn't even there. The design allows for it's a permeable surface. It allows for light, water, and air to flow through it, and this is really important for mana whenua. So even though this was delivered by an independent statutory board, I guess it's really important to understand that it does align with POSAT, and as well as, I guess, that around value around treasuring our parks and open spaces. So kia ora for allowing us to present that, and I'd like to pass it over to Mark to present on the rest of the parks and open space stuff. Thank you.
Kia ora koutou members. Thank you for your time this afternoon. My name is Mark Bowater, Head of Park Services. So Nick has profiled one of the 4 key focus areas for the Parks and Open Space Strategic Action Plan, and the 3 case studies that I'll now talk to relate to the other 3, enjoy, connect and utilise. So we'll start with Sculpture in the Gardens. This is a biennial event held at the Auckland Botanic Gardens, and it's a partnership with the Friends of the Botanic Gardens. The inaugural event was held in 2007, and the 8th exhibition opened on 11 December 2021. The primary original objective of Sculpture in the Gardens was to attract more visitors to the Botanic Gardens, and it certainly achieved this objective, with around 369,000 visitors during the last event. It is now the most highly visited sculpture event in the country. At each exhibition, the Friends purchase a piece of art, and this contributes to the 26 outstanding sculptures now on permanent display in the gardens. The next one is our Connect to Nature programs. These are delivered primarily in local parks or community parks, and they aim to connect more people with parks and nature, focus on activities for young people in particular, Maori and Asian communities. In 2021, 78 targeted Connect to Nature programs were delivered. Programs include urban bush camps, Wild About Nature, and Mataronga Maori, Wananga, and Kai Whenua, which empower participants to connect with nature, take part in environmental activities, develop awareness of our Indigenous biodiversity, and celebrate our Maori identity in parks. During the recent COVID-19 lockdown periods, our team ran Backyard Wild Child programs on Facebook. It was all delivered virtually and received a huge following. And there were many other online events as well. The last one is around natural burials. This began in Waikumete Cemetery in 2017. The natural burial area is located within an area of regenerating native bush and offers an alternative to the traditional burial layout of a lawn cemetery. As the burial placement is not in sequential rows, plots are identified to work with the vegetation and the landscape, and GPS coordinates are recorded. Families who wish to visit the burial site of a loved one are able to use those GPS coordinates to locate it. Annual planting occurs in the burial area where families can celebrate, remember and restore the space. In 2018, Wakamiti Cemetery received the Innovation Award for the Natural Burial Area at the New Zealand Cemeteries and Crematoria Collective Conference. Thank you, and that wraps up our case studies.
Mace, you got any closing comments before I open it up? There's 2 partai already.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And no, the only closing comment I have is just really to recognise the committee's support in delivering this mahi across Auckland, and that includes how we engage with our communities. So, kia ora, Mr. Chairman.
Ka pai ngā mihi ki a koutou katoa, gentlemen. Thank you so much for the presentation. Partai, first one is Matua Kake.
No, I'm good with this one, Iwa. Thank you. I think the explanation's been fine. Thank you.
Ka pai. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you. And look, this could well be a highlight of my day, an excellent report. Thank you all. A major highlight, I might add. Look, my partai is to Mace. Mace, in one of your slides, you say that our volunteers gave approximately 170,000 hours of work in our parks. Have you got any idea how much that has, what the cost of that? I mean, that's a huge saving. Our volunteers do so much out there. And of course, because they are volunteers and it's not paid, and I know we support them, but that's been a huge saving to council. Is there any way we can look at a value added dollar figure? Because I think it's a really great story to tell.
Kia ora, Councillor Simpson, and thanks for the question. Obviously, we haven't put a value on it. A lot of our volunteers do find that they'd rather give their time in that way, but certainly I can take that offline and come back to you with a number in terms of the offset cost of that volunteer effort. You are correct. So where we have friends of groups such as, let's say, Tawharanui Open Sanctuary Society on regional parks, they're delivering a significant amount of value, or as you heard from Mark, the Friends of the Botanic Gardens, into those types of events like Sculpture in the Gardens, where we are partnering, right down to those local events where people are tree planting or they're doing other things, supporting sport and recreation as well. But I can come back to you with some assessment of that value. But it is a significant value, equivalent to if we were to employ staff, for example, to do that. It's equivalent to around 120 staff.
Thank you, and I'd really appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, because I think it's a real positive for Auckland. I just think that we need to make sure that we thank our volunteers and just remind everybody exactly the role that they play and how important it is, not just for what they do, but the fact that they are, saving us a considerable amount of money. So thank you. I'd appreciate that work, Mason. Come back to me. Thank you.
Yeah, ka pai, Councillor Simpson. I think also we've got our number one communications lady online here, which is Isabel, and I know she's talking to our staff to ensure the mahi that not only our volunteers but just the sector is playing will be highlighted hopefully in a release. Councillor Simpson.
Thank you, Chair.
Ka pai. I don't have any more. I'll just wait for any partai anyway. But I do, however, and I'll just apply the 3-second rule. No, I'm going to go to, just one comment in the sidebar. Mace, have you seen it? It just got put a living wage value on it. So that's just leading forward, moving forward on it. Thank you. And Matua Wilcox, e kōrero taku.
Kia ora, e mihi ana kia koutou, I roto I tēnei kaupapa. I'd just like to say I've been going around the regional parks over the last period of the since January, just prior to the hearings for the kaupapa of the sorry, can you hear me?
Ai,
Okay,
ka pai.
yeah. Oh, sorry. So I've been prior to our hearings for the plans for the regional parks, and I'd just like to congratulate the team for all of this kind of kaupapa, because one of the things that I've picked up from people just in regional parks and also in our open spaces has been how much they appreciated our parks and open spaces during the COVID lockdowns, all across the community. So I just wanted to say that and say thank you for implementing these kind of kaupapa. It's really important because for a lot of people, that's all they had. Thank you.
Ka pai Matua, and no, I think what you've just said is echoed with everybody around there. So I will go to Councillor Walker, and then I'll get Councillor Fletcher, I think maybe the last in regards to any whakaaro. Kia ora.
Thanks, Alf. Just want to extend the question or comment that Desley was making. As much and all as there's a large number of direct volunteer hours, I would suggest that there are a significant number of indirect volunteer hours in addition to that. And if you also assess the value of plants that are grown and supplied by volunteer groups, the value that we get is absolutely phenomenal. And it would be useful to have even some approximate quantification of that. Part of the reason why I'm raising that issue is we've had an instance of some trees that were mown at Sanders Reserve in Albany and Paraimoremo, and in my view, quite a bit of misinformation, not on the part of officers, but on the part of information that I've seen that gave rise to the decision making, where the officers who had prepared an excellent report weren't even given the opportunity to speak. But without wanting to go into it in any detail, what it does highlight is the need to really recognise the effective contracts that we've got with the community, with volunteers. And I'd suggest the need to have some guidelines and maybe even memorandums of understanding or protocols, so that we don't have the situation that I saw at Sanders Reserve happening at other locations, because it can be very disruptive, and in that instance I think has been quite disruptive. So I'm making that by way of a comment, Mr. Chair. If any of the officers want to make a reply, they're welcome to, but I'm not holding them to it. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, ka pai, Councillor Walker, and I think it's been taken on board, your comments. So kia ora to that. Councillor Fletcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I really just wanted to speak briefly to comment on the way in which I welcome the opportunity to actually have consideration of agenda items of this. When you think of the enormity of what we are responsible for, as when you listen to Mace outlining just the sheer scale of work and the scope of the work, it's extraordinary in some ways that we give it so little time by way of debate, given the great affection that the public of the Auckland region have. So I've really really appreciated the opportunity today to hear about some of the highlights, to be reminded once again of the huge amount of work that is taking place, and the absolute treasure that we have in this work. I'd also, Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, really like to give my thanks and support to the staff that we have working in the sector. They go way beyond just the professional responsibilities that they have. Many of them are involved in volunteer programs as well. I just think that we are so lucky to have such a depth of knowledge that's come through earlier councils, legacy councils, and so forth. But there's not one person working in this particular area that I don't think deserves multiple accolades. So I'm really proud as an Aucklander of what we achieve, and I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity, because we so rarely actually get to hear about what is happening in this sector. So it's been a great opportunity today to have agenda item 16, and I thank you for that.
Kapai. So, Councillor Fletcher, as I mentioned earlier about Isabel, who is on this call and our comms person, she has, I have no doubt at all, touched base with Mace around putting something in our comms. I will get her and also have a cordial with you as the portfolio holder, especially in regards to parks. So I'll, Isabel, if you're still here, and I think you are, if that could happen, that'll be great. Kia ora. There's no further, so it has been moved and seconded. I will now put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 Against? Carried. We'll now move to item 17, and that is just consideration of extraordinary items. Before I just put this particular one, I want to thank Kalinda and Sophie for assisting Mai today at our committee. I also want to acknowledge again the staff and say thank you to you. And also to the committee itself. And the reason I'm saying that is because I know that we ended up just having 10 minutes, but I wanted to get through these items so then we could have the afternoon without any other disruption. So thank you, committee, for allowing us to get to this point. So there's no extraordinary business, and I will close the meeting. And again, thank you to everybody. Thank you, peeps. Enjoy the afternoon.
Thank you, Chair. Thinking of you.